Welcome back to Pink Ribbon. I'm Bev Ramsey, and we're on a journey to victory in health. As I told you last time, I've had a lot of health issues, and this time I'd like to share with you how they all began. And life began changing in March of 1987. In 1987, my dad was 43 years old, and he had his first heart attack. And you say, how does that have to do with ulcerative colitis and all these wonderful bags that are hanging on this table? Well, in 1987, he had his heart attack, and in about a year, he started developing what we found out to be ulcerative colitis. In 1989, my dad began having several surgeries to get rid of his colon. They were going to do what was called an ileoanal anastomosis, which is to remove your colon and to attach your end of your small bowel with your rectum. That didn't work for my dad. So he wound up with an ileostomy on the outside, which is thus why we have these bags here, because I want people to see what goes on with people that have the ileostomy and colostomies. Well, in 1990, I was getting married for the first time. I'd waited a long time to get married, to find the right guy, and here my dad comes home in December of 1989 weighing 128 pounds. He had been to Mayo Clinic, which is where he had all his surgeries. And I think, oh my gosh, he's got to start eating Cheetos and drinking Coke so he'll be ready for my wedding. So he did that, and by February, when I got married in 1990, he gave me away, and literally, and we had a beautiful wedding, and in March, my dad went back for his final surgery, which was to make a permanent ileostomy on the outside. We moved forward to the end of 1990, the first of 1991, and I began to start having some of the same symptoms my dad had. And thus, at the end of 1991, it was getting pretty bad. And in 1992, they had done a lot of tests. I've been to several gastroenterologists, both in Fort Smith and Little Rock, and they thought I only had ulcerative colitis from about 6 inches in my rectum, which that's not something that's easy to talk about, but it's just fact. Well, in April the 1st of 1992, Stan, my husband, he had to take me to ER because I was just gushing blood and in severe pain. Well, my gastroenterologist, he told me at that time, he said, after doing a colonoscopy on me, he said, there's nothing else I can do for you. He said, I can put you on 6-MP, but that causes lymphoma cancer. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. I said, I know it can be taken out, and I said, I'll be better. So get me an appointment at Mayo Clinic. So he did, and so in June of 1992, my husband and I, we go up to Rochester, Minnesota to Mayo Clinic. And I don't know if you've ever been to a huge clinic like that or MD Anderson. It is like a whole entire city and world amongst itself. So we go through a whole bunch of tests, and they bring me in, and they say, Miss Ramsey, we only see a few inches in your rectum, but for all the problems you're having, we don't understand. We want to do one more test. And the problem is I was on a lot of prednisone, the antibiotic for the bacteria in your colon. Not sure if that's the correct word for the medication, but whatever it was, I'm not real sure. But I was having a lot of issues, and you would get me below 20 milligrams of prednisone, and it would just flare back up, and I'd have pain and just all the things that go with it. So they told me they wanted to do one more test. So I said, okay. So we did one more test. They brought me in the next day, and they told me and Stan that basically my whole right side of my colon was gone, that the ulcerative colitis had literally eaten up the whole right side of my colon, and it had to be removed. So I was scheduled for surgery 2 days later, which gave my mom and dad time to drive up to Minnesota to get ready for surgery. I was 29 years old. It was June, and in June in Minnesota, it is a lot colder than it is in Arkansas, and my husband and I took one pair of pants. When you go to Minnesota in June, take a lot of pants and jackets. So surgery was scheduled, and the thing that I found very interesting, and this was 92, so we got to remember this is 26 years ago that this was all taking place, is most of the people that were in with me having these tests run were women and young men between 16 and 30 were young. For some reason, this seems to hit younger people. So they scheduled me for surgery. The night before surgery, they load me up with prednisone and antibiotics, and they give you this stuff called Go Lightly, which is a joke, really, because you don't. And they tried to make it taste like lemonade and taste good, so I just want to just drink it all night. And I didn't drink lemonade for 5 years after that. So they did the surgery, and one thing I want people to know is when somebody is out and you're wondering if they hear you, yes. Because my mom, she knew every time they pushed my pain pump that I would get sick. And I heard her telling them she's getting sick. Every time you push her pain pump, she gets sick. So they had to switch me from morphine to Demerol, which I will tell you, I did like Demerol. So didn't stay on that very long. But the next morning, they had to get me up to walk. Yes, I have been opened up from above my belly button to the very end of that part of my body. And they're getting me up. And not only did I have that one incision that was probably 12 inches long, I had one on the right side of my body where my new ileostomy bag was. Yes, that was devastating for a 29-year-old young lady who had just gotten married 2 years earlier, and there's a lot of questions. So they get me up and start walking me. I mean, I've got a catheter, I've got that bag, I've got all these tubes and everything hanging on me, and they're trying to walk me out of the room, and all of a sudden I feel like something is running down my leg, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just peed all over myself. Yes, that's what I thought. But I was wrong. At 29, when your body goes into shock, a lot of young ladies start their periods again. So guess what? I had. So my mom and the nurse, they put me back in bed. They take care of me, and who would think their 29-year-old daughter would be being cleaned up by her mother at 29? So from then on, modesty did not bother me. It is just like, once that happens to you, it's just over with. So that's kind of how I started with the colitis, and that's really kind of how I'd like to end today, is with the surgery. It was very traumatic for me. I mean, when you wake up at 29 years old, and like I said, a lot of those kids there were in their teens. You wake up, and you've got this bag right here attached to the outside of your body, and you don't go to the bathroom like you used to. And now you're running in this bag with absolutely no control. You're emotionally a little distraught, and you wonder what your spouse is going to think, and you wonder how you're going to function, and will you be able to do the things you used to. Well, as I've volunteered in oncology a lot, I'm finding that there's not a lot out there to help people. So what I'd like to do is end this today with letting you know we're here. My dad actually, for 25 years, he and my mother helped in an ostomy group to help people know what to do. And so today I want to end, and if you have questions, would you please send me your questions on either message me through Pink Ribbon or personally look me up, Bev Ramsey, and I'll be glad to do that. But next time I want to do a question and answer session and kind of get this out here a little bit more, because I did talk to somebody this past week about some of the issues that people have, and they said there's nobody that talks about it, and they need to. So all I have to say today is thank you, and next month we're going to talk about life after the bag is put on. See you next month.